Good evening, everybody. We're back here on Gelvin Valley to the sound of our puppy somewhere barking. We'll head out to the harvest field and continue where we left off. Actually, this was in our pasture. And judging from the colors, we're coming into evening. It's about, uh, what is it, at 8 o'clock in game. So we'll see if we can get the rest harvested, but I'm not sure we'll be able to, but we'll get him set off. Get our tractor going. I believe last time we set up a course, and of course, course play doesn't load it, so hopefully we still have it. I believe I called it pasture. There it is. We'll specify our combine. There we go. Keep four-wheel drive on. Just check our combine, make sure it's negotiating the turn. Oh boy, that's going to be fun getting the straw out of the fence when we drag the baler in here. And of course our combine is still as dirty as ever. I'm looking at that dirt and wondering if I need to fix it. I guess eventually we'll clean it off. Guess we have this little field to windrow here. You know, this particular evening, it's, as I'm recording this, it's about a little after 10 p.m. in the evening, and tonight was kind of a special night. It's June, of course, and I attended the commencement of one of my sons who graduated from high school, and brings back a lot of memories because high school anymore is getting to be quite a bit in the past for me. And I'm not sure I've ever been to one quite like it. You know, we get there and the skies are cloudy, and this particular school, they have it all outdoors, kind of on their football field. They have stands there, and we had, I think, each kid for their family get 6 tickets, which was just perfect for our family to show up there. And if you don't have a ticket, I believe where you would end up is in the stands. So based on how the sky looked, we basically chose to go right into the stands, figuring, you know, that'll elevate us a little bit above the crowd, and we'll be able to see, you know, when our son walks across and gets his diploma and all that jazz, we'll be able to see him. Whereas if we were down with everybody else, you know, it can get kind of hard with all the people, and they were just single layer or single level chairs. So we opted to go up there, and sure enough, I mean, almost to the dot, when the graduates started walking in, the rain just started pouring. And let me tell you, it didn't quit either. I have never been part of a graduation ceremony where the sky just literally peed on everybody the entire time. I mean, I felt bad for the principal up there. He's in this full-on suit. You can see him up there with his tie. He has no hat on, and he's up there trying to talk to the graduates, trying to tell some wonky story or whatever, and they're probably all just shut up and get over with so we can go in and dry off. I think they I think they eliminated a few items from the program, you know, that they were going to do. There was going to be some numbers. The band would play kind of in the middle, and I think there was a group that was going to sing, but I think they cut all of that out just so they could kind of, you know, get to the main point, which was handing out the diplomas. The band played, you know, when they were walking in and everything, and they got hosed off too. I mean, you can see them back there. They're playing, you know, the standard traditional pomp and circumstance of American graduations, And they're back there, having their little music stands and their papers up on there. It must have just gummed them up something royal. I was just waiting for the electrical system out there to short out, with some water in it or what have you. But fortunately, that didn't happen. It, I don't think I'll ever forget it. I don't think those kids will either. And, some of them, there was a couple kids always have speeches, of course, and, so they're up there uh, pontificating on life, if you will, as the rain continues pouring down. I think there was thunder a few times, and it just seems surreal. And I don't think they'll ever forget this. I know I won't. And this is our third child now that has graduated from high school. We have just one other child. It'll be a few years before he gets there. But yeah, it does something to a parent to see your kid up there, going through what we went through, quite a number of years ago, and it's pretty humbling to see, what they've achieved in getting a diploma. And my son, I can brag on him here just a little bit. I guess that's what a parent's supposed to do, right? He was one of the valedictorians of his class, so he had a 4.0 GPA, and it wasn't just in bonehead classes either, or easy classes. He took some of the tough stuff, and I don't know. I'm really proud of him for sticking to it, and coming off that achievement. I know there was times it was pretty hard. He wanted to kind of give up, but he stuck to it. And I think that's the name of the game. I didn't sit down with the kids, telling them they had to get a 4 point, but I did want them to try as hard as they were able. And woo! Oh, that tractor's not gonna, or a car's not gonna wait for this tractor. He says I have the right of way. But we only expected our kids to do as well as, you know, God gave them the tools to be whoever they are, and it's neat to see them, reach their potential, whatever that is. And what so many of them are going to figure out is, commencement is one thing, and that's good, and graduating and all that, but it's really only the beginning, and there's just so much potential sitting out there. And I never thought about this as a kid, but as a parent and looking at all those kids out there getting waterlogged by the minute, there are just so many stories and of each person's life, and there will be many more stories written. And just looking out there, his class size was, I believe it was 300 some, decent sized class. I think the school I went to had 320 in it in my class. But just looking out there, there's probably statistics out there on this. As early as next year, it's possible someone will die. It's possible someone will get a disease and have some real struggles. There will be marriages happen, then there will be divorces that happen, children will be born, and I mean just kind of the continuation of life, and people will, become or start their careers. Some will fail, some will succeed, and some will fabulously succeed. And a lot of it is just luck and chance of life. Some of it is hard work and taking advantage of opportunities, as they're available. There's just so many things that are unknown, but that you wonder about, for these kids as you look ahead, and as to how that story will be written. And there's also, a pretty major story behind them. You know, most of those kids up there, I don't know. I don't know how many of them my son knows. I know he's friends with a lot of them, of course. But some of these kids have really taken some knocks. Oh, that combine likes the fence once again. He made it around last time, but not this time. Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay, I can't be driving over the crop here. All right, tractor. I tell you what, it's hard when there's all these fences around. I'm gonna just manually do it here. But in terms of the backstories of a lot of these kids, I mean, probably even as I talk about this, anybody listening, you think of your own story and whatever you went through. And oh, I'm gonna turn off the assignment and see if I can drive. Nope, nope, nope. He isn't gonna do it. All right, head on or head down there. Whatever you want to do. Get out of here. So maybe everybody thinks, of their own story and your upbringing and the obstacles you had to face and maybe the blessings or opportunities, a lot of us maybe had just by virtue of where we happen to be born. Wherever God put us in this world, families he chose to put us into, a little one, if he's born into a broken family, well, he or she didn't choose that. That's just kind of where they landed. And I just, anymore, I feel so fortunate, the family upbringing I had and growing up in, my mom and dad. Oh, let's see here, 92, 82, 92, 02, 12. I think this year, now that I do the math, they will have been married 50 years. And, my parents aren't perfect people, but growing up, I knew my parents loved me, they cared for me, they provided for me, both physically and now, I mean, you hear some of the stories of what some kids go through in the home and, the abuse that some of them take, whether it's physical or mental or sometimes, unfortunately, even sexual, that they have to contend with or or just chaos. To be able to go home and to be free and to be a kid and not have to worry about where your meal's coming from or who your father is. So many homes anymore, and I don't mean to make this political, but yeah, it's not political at all. Kids need a mom and a dad, and I just feel grateful and thankful I grew up with that, and I wish every child could have that, and sadly, it just isn't reality for many of them. And so, looking out across all those kids, I have no idea, what I know for some, but just what obstacles they had. And so it makes the idea of graduation, all that much of a bigger feat. I have a cousin, and there's some people in our church, who are part of the school system, and one of them in particular is kind of on a more inner city school. And I know some of what he's told me sometimes is some of these kids, you wonder maybe why they do poorly in school or if they could try a little bit harder. And what he says is they're too busy trying to figure out what they're going to eat sometimes versus, what they're going to learn, and it maybe sometimes as taxpayers we wonder a little bit about things like the school lunch program and wonder why it's the taxpayer's job to feed all these kids. And well, the reality is someone else isn't feeding them, and so the system has to help take care of them. So many kids sitting out there, and you wonder about all their backstories, what they've been through. It's still a great achievement nonetheless, and thankful all of them could get through it. And it brings back a ton of memories of when I was in those shoes. And all I remember from my own graduation is the constancy of the pomp and circumstance. It doesn't sound bad to hear it the first time, but then as you all walk in, and in my case, I think they played it also when we were walking out. Now, tonight, because of the rain, after the kids came in, the band kind of vamoosed. So they didn't continue playing, and they didn't play it when they were walking out. I just remember it droning on and on and on, when I was a kid. And I remember something else. I mean, In our school, they also had a couple kids make a speech, and there was this one girl that had a speech, and at the time, I thought her speech was pretty dreary. And I mean, she basically told the class some of the challenges that we would have coming up. Now, at that time, there was, she couldn't have known so many things, that have happened, whether it's COVID or the political unrest in our country and how people are loggerheads, with if you're on one side of an issue versus another. She couldn't have commented on that, but the whole tenor of her speech, it wasn't very positive. And I gotta say, even though she might have been wrong on some details, she pretty much nailed it in terms of, what kind of a environment we would have in our country in terms of just basic interpersonal people getting along and whatnot, which is kind of sad. At the time, I guess you kind of hope for something positive, but I think she was just being real. So there's something to be said for that. I also liked it tonight, and I live in a pretty, I use the word liberal, maybe I'll just say progressive, a very progressive state in the state of Oregon, but it still was heartwarming that at the beginning of commencement, they chose to sing the national anthem. There was a couple kids, I say a couple kids, I think it was from the choir, maybe there was a half dozen. They did a pretty good job too. It wasn't real fancy, it was just straight up and heartwarming, and I appreciate they did that. People can say what they want about America, and I would be the first to say we're not perfect. I mean, it has me in it, so I know that alone makes it not perfect. We got lots of flaws, but I think our history has shown we can learn from our mistakes. Whether it's coming out of slavery, abolishing that, or any number of things. Improving over time, and I do appreciate having grown up here for the opportunities that it provides and whatnot. So I appreciate the nod to the country, even in a progressive state. I will say I saw nobody take a knee, so I think there was others there that appreciated our nation too, even as the kids listened on. And and these, I know they truncated the program a bit to kind of get through it quicker on account of the rain. You know how these go. Whenever somebody gets up there, it's primarily run by the principal, of course. So he's getting up there and, oh, I want to thank this person. Oh, I want to thank that person. And this person stand up and, be recognized. And he did that a little bit. I'm sure everybody is sitting there, especially all those waterlogged kids going, can you hurry it up? The sky is peeing on us. So, which he did. And, so some of the people he recognized was the school board. And I don't know that the school board is all that well liked here. So there was a little bit of, I guess, compulsory clapping, if you will, because that's just what we do. But the real clapping happened, when the teachers stood up, the ones that were there and willing to be soaked in the rain. And that's, I think, the the front line of warriors making a difference, in the lives of these kids. And of course, it isn't just the teachers. I mean, there's athletics and counselors and all sorts of people, not the least of which are parents, that help all of our young people become the men and women that they end up becoming. And then all the different cheers too. I remember this as a kid. When it was my turn to get a diploma, I remember walking up there. I could hear applause, but that was really it. Now this was outdoors, and I just wonder sometimes if the kids being specifically cheered for really heard it. We were sitting up in the stands, and every now and again, just be a certain kid's name would be announced, and you just hear this enormous ruckus. And there was a couple times, of course, it was right behind us, and it just blew my eardrums out. These people were so loud, I was just laughing. But you wonder if the kid themselves heard it, or wasn't that far away, or if they did hear it and it's like, oh my goodness, they just wanted to crawl under a rock. That's probably how I would have felt if I would have seen my dad and family hooting and hollering. Some of them even had some of those air horns, where they have a can, a kind of an aerosol can or whatever, just has air in it and makes it very loud. And so I'm feeling almost a little hearing impaired after the evening. But now, why is our combine slowing there? But all in all, I mean, it was good to go see. Um, I have to say, and maybe people looking at a game like Farming Simulator, watching the combine go round and round like I do routinely, they say how boring. I go to a pomp and circumstance thing, and I'll go there for the sake of my kid. But I gotta say, for all those people out there that I didn't know, good for them. I know those kids need their kudos too, but a lot of it is, if I have to admit, just kind of boring. My wife, I think, was surprised I didn't bring a book along this evening. Sometimes I'll bring a book and try to read a little bit at some of these, but I didn't do that tonight because I didn't know if we were going to be inside or outside. And as it turns out, that probably wasn't the worst idea to leave it home, because we really got hosed off. And there was even some people that left a little bit early. I felt bad for all the people sitting down there. It and I mean, the justice of it all. The By the time it was done and the kids walked off the field, there was a brief lull where it quit raining. And I thought, well, isn't that great? The spigot turns off right as the evening closes and we're about done. But I know as we headed out to our vehicle, it picked up again. And, I don't care if you were in the stands or where you were, you didn't go home dry. So everybody's going to remember it, whether they want to or not. Well, now we're several rounds into our little pasture field here. And after this one, I kind of think we only have 3 left. We're kind of over where you see the little yellow CP on there. Doesn't really have a field number, right next to field number 10. And I think we have field number 8, 37, and 38 to do. And it's been a long harvest. Every single one of these videos has been on harvest, so I apologize if anybody's bored with that already, but that's what I'm doing. And it maybe that's why some YouTubers, they will continue it, then they will speed it up somehow and set it to music. I think I've commented on that before. I don't know how to do that. Maybe one of these days I'll talk to one of my friends, Atomic 67. I think he's done that kind of thing before. But one good thing about the way I'm doing these videos is I don't have to do a whole lot of editing. I make a thumbnail for it, and then I pretty well upload it. And it's kind of funny. With the internet the way it is here, it takes way longer to upload the video than it does to make. So I can make these faster than my internet can upload it, but that's okay. Shoot, if I made too many, it'd be just all more videos that might never be watched. Maybe one of these days I'll figure out how to do that, or just make fewer of them and try to get through some of this off screen rather than putting it on a video. But this is just how I farm. I know maybe there's some others with a certain size farm, they would choose to have multiple combines going, multiple pieces of equipment. And, well, in this case, I think everybody can see my cash position. I just don't have money. I can't borrow any further, so I really don't have much of a choice. Although I think it will let me rent. So I could, I suppose, rent a combine. I'm using the rent mod. I could, put another machine in here, but a lot of times I'm just trying to relax, and I practically use the game as a type of screensaver, to where I can be doing other things and just periodically check the game. But if, I'm thinking on some other subject and look up, I can see my little combine going, or things doing whatever they do, where I don't even have to hardly touch it. Well, I mean, that's some value for me too. It's mainly a relaxation type of thing. And I know others, maybe they say, hey, we'll get several machines so we can get through it and we can move on to something else. And I don't know, maybe I'm just slow in the head. I tend to take a slower pace at it. So I'd be curious if anybody comments to kind of know what their style of it is. And obviously, here I've chosen a really dinky combine. I could have a bigger, or I could somehow push a larger header in there. Shoot, I could probably even attach a larger header to this combine. I think back in 15, it wasn't very particular in terms of what header you put on a machine. You could pretty well fit any of them to any of the combines. So, but I think this one fits my little combine about the best. And I mean, it couldn't really fit through the gates over there anyhow. They're so narrow. In Farm Sim 17, one of my long-term saves, and when I say long-term, I mean over 1,000 hours. It, I have a massive farm. It's on a 16x map, and I don't know how to quantify or tell you how many acres it is. I maybe own, oh, I don't know if it's quite a third of the map. Maybe it's a third. Shoot, I don't know. At least a quarter. So that's about how much. I mean, it'd be like 2 square kilometers. And I do that whole thing. I have a single combine. Now, granted, it's a big combine, but I harvest the whole thing with just that one combine. And it's using the seasons mod. Maybe I'll do a video on it sometime, just to kind of show people what it looks like. It's the Corn Belt map, incidentally, and really have enjoyed that map. And I still got my save game there. I could just continue it on where I left. I think it's in winter time period where I left it off, but I did the whole harvest with a single combine, and I think I sold the combine when I was done. I looked at the hour meter, and I think it was over 200 hours, maybe 220 hours that I put on the combine, just on a single combine to do the harvest. So it was well used, by the time the harvest was over, and yeah, it took a lot of time. When I say 220 hours, that's 220 hours of real time. And like I said earlier, it isn't that I'm sitting there actively doing anything with it. A lot of times you set up course play. Corn Belt happens to have a whole lot of flat areas, not many obstacles, not near as many, like this map here, where it's got all these fences to run into, and, the stream down here. It's much more open space on Corn Belt. So there's a lot of times you get it set up, and your course play will take care of it, and you can watch it for a long time, or glance at it, and it'll keep on doing what it's doing, and be just fine. I've never felt like leaving it on overnight so it can keep working. I mean, to me, that kind of defeats the purpose. I kind of want to see it a little bit, but it's pretty handy. That's kind of how some of those hours can go by, and you wonder, my goodness, how did you rack up so many hours? Well, there's a way. Let me switch over to the combine again. Well, and according to the clock, it says I'm close to a half an hour, and that's what my good friend Atomic 67 said. Well, actually, he didn't say half an hour. I think he said 15 to 25 minutes or somewhere in there. So already I'm over probably what he would recommend. But I think I'll call it there. And thank you all for watching. Hope I didn't bore you with bragging on my son. And I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good night. Bye-bye.